Welcome to Behind the Biz, conversations with artists and entertainment. I'm your host, Megan Mason. Please subscribe here on YouTube and don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Now, on to the show. Hello, Barbara.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, everybody. I want to introduce you to Barbara Bears.
Hello.
Who is now a ballet master at the Houston Ballet and was a principal dancer with them for over 20 years, right?
Yeah, 20 years. I mean, it was like a little on the cusp of just under 20, but for math, we just say 20, but yeah, 20.
So I wanted to, you were on my list when I made the list of people I wanted to interview. And I was told my mom, I was like, I'm actually kind of a little bit nervous today. But let me tell you what. So when I came back to the ballet in 2008 to work with Billy, who was the head of hair and makeup then, I had only ever grown up watching the Houston Ballet, right? So we went to different shows, and the magic of the Nutcracker was always like, when I got to work behind the scenes on the Nutcracker the first time, I was giddy, is an understatement. And it was still Ben Stevenson's. And so they had the flying chefs. And, So I was like, oh my God. But the Merry Widow was that season. And you were the Merry Widow.
Yeah.
And I was telling my mom the story last night. I was like, in my head, Barbara you're so big. You're so tall and like just big, but you're actually not. You're a very tiny, very tiny and petite woman that just has like amazing legs and stuff. But in the Merry Widow, there was a scene where you go behind, you run off stage, and then you had to go up the stairs. Yeah. And there was some type of hair change, and I had
you quick hair change and quick costume change, yeah.
And I remember you standing there, and we would walk sideways going up the stairs, and I was like, I can't mess this up because you were so focused and so kind, but just in the zone. And I was like, I can't mess this up because it's Barbara Bears, and she's gonna go on stage, and I'm gonna just ruin my whole career. It worked out fine, everybody.
Yes, it did, and it's actually a really quick change. It's a change. Funny story, now that I'm on the other side of it and out front or staging the ballet, and we actually did the ballet probably about a year and a half ago now, roughly. Yeah, we didn't do it that long ago. And there's that scene, that change into the vision scene where the widow becomes a young girl again. And I remember talking to Maestro, this is a really, really quick change. You can't play this little transition scene too fast. So play it as slow as you can possibly get away with, just to give these girls a little bit of time, get changed, get the wig changed, and get a little sip of water so that they can feel like they have a breath before they have to enter. So, yeah, because sometimes, no one really knows what goes on backstage. And, they think of it as in this glamorous way, but really a lot of times you run off stage and you're like a crazy person trying to get stuff on and off, and you've got wigs and makeup and wardrobe and everybody trying to make something happen. And we do now at the Houston Ballet, people can auction off a backstage experience during Nutcracker, which I actually not host but help that person through that process. And they are dumbfounded at how chaotic it can be backstage, and that you just don't see that from out front. That's the magic of live theater.
Oh yeah, and the ballet in particular. Like I said, I had worked in theater, and I had worked a little bit in opera at that point. I wasn't with Cirque yet, but I had that experience. But coming to the ballet and seeing you guys on stage, guys and gals, and everything is so effortless and gorgeous. And then you would come off stage, and then people were allowed to breathe, kind of.
Yeah.
So it was like, and I was like, oh my God, they're sweating. You can see all the muscles work. And it was just, I thought I loved ballet, and then I worked on it. And I'm now I really absolutely adore it. And, getting exposed to Gary Killian and Petite Mort, which I think might be my favorite piece.
Yeah, it's beautiful ballet. It's so simple, and that's what's
Mm-hmm.
so, sometimes, you know, a lot of stuff, um, you know, is lovely to look at, but really in reality, something that's just so simple can be the most beautiful thing, you know. And actually a favorite piece of mine, also musically, just in general. It's a piece I love, partially because at the beginning of the piece, the boys have to walk backwards, and they have a, you know, they have a sword, and they have to balance it on their finger as they walk backwards. And for ladies who always have to, you know, most of the big story ballets have corps de ballet women, and they have to really be in line, and the girls are always on top of things. And not that I'm saying the boys aren't on top of things, but there's some pleasure in standing behind that corset, watching these boys panic, you know, as they're like trying to like balance this sword on their finger. And I yeah, there's something so beautiful about that piece. But for us, I think 6 ladies or 8 ladies, like I think it's 6 that are in the piece, to stand there behind those really hard bustiers, kind of chuckling to ourselves, like the boot's on the other foot now, gentlemen, you know?
Exactly. You're like, just a little tiny piece of pleasure there.
Yeah, a little bit.
I was digging around in the interwebs, and I found a wonderful article from the Sun Sentinel.
Oh yeah,
in
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale, which is where you're from, and there was a lot of really interesting information in there that I didn't know. Reading it, you sound so sure, because you're 16, I think, in this article, and the amount of confidence that comes through those words of absolutely knowing what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Were you always like that growing up too?
I mean, I think that's unique to dancers or other people like musicians. I mean, I don't want to categorize it just to people who are in the arts, but I think it, you know, when you have something you're really passionate about, like, you know, being a ballet dancer or being a singer or something like that. And for me, I grew up in a school that I could go into the ballet studio at 9 o'clock and stay there all day because I was able to do correspondence for high school. So, you know, I had that focus and that drive really early on. Like, I don't know how far I'll get in this profession, but I'm going to be a ballet dancer. And you kind of have to make that commitment so early on. You can't at 16 be like, oh, I want to take ballet and be a ballet dancer. It's like being a gymnast. You know, your window of opportunity is small to even have a career. You know, most dancers are lucky to get into their late 30s and dance that long. So, you know, most ballet companies want you when you're 18, 17, 19, because they want to invest in a dancer and have them when they're at their physically, you know, not necessarily prime, but when they can mold that dancer. And so I think that's one thing when you grow up in this profession and you're so focused. Like, I have a teenager now, he's 18, he's applying for college.
Oh my God.
I know. And he kind of thinks he knows what he wants to do, but he isn't 100% positive. And that's where it's like now I've been faced with that reality of like, well, I always knew what I wanted to do. And there are millions and thousands and millions of people out there that are in high school and really don't know what their passion is. And, you know, that's why I think it wasn't necessarily, it was passion. And it was like, I want to do this more than anything. And that was what made the focus happen. You know, it was that drive to like, I really love this and I want to do it. So I'm all in. And that just happens because of the necessity of, you want to get a job when you're 18, 19 years old.
So amazing. The discipline that is in dance in general is inspiring, really. I mean, I'm in the same boat as far as I always knew I wanted to do this in a certain aspect in entertainment, but I feel like dance is a whole different level because of, you know, like you were saying, how early you kind of have to go into it. Did your son express any interest in dancing?
For like a minute second. I mean, I think, you know, that kind of, I mean, he doesn't remember much. I mean, I think I retired, he was 6 at the time. And he came to like every performance, that my husband he was old enough and could sit through, he took him to.
Mm-hmm.
He has really very little memory of it. I think his memory, and this is going to sound really awful, is of ballet took mom away. You know what I mean? And I can remember, I remember we were doing a new production of Swan Lake and dropping him off at daycare. And my husband, he was picked up at like 2:00 in the afternoon. He wasn't there all day because my husband had a very flexible schedule. And that was really put him in daycare or preschool so that he could, learn his ABCs a little early and things like that. And I remember him crying when I was leaving, and he's like, "Mommy, I never see you. I never see you." And that killed me, and I remember the teacher saying, "Oh no, kids do this all the time with their parents." I said, "No, I put in like sometimes like a 50, 60-hour week, and so I think that was the beginning of the end for me of like, I'm 37, 38 years old. I've done everything I want to do. I think what's more important, And so that was kind of a pivot for me at that point. But he had very little interest in ballet. And I think I kind of I encouraged that not interest in ballet, because he's tall, he's 6'1". I was like,
Wow.
You're going to be this guy that drags, that's going to be a partnering kind of guy. And I don't know. I wanted him to do something else. I wanted him to find what his passion was. And I did ask him, even after I retired, he was like 7 or 8. I said, "Do you want to take ballet lessons?" He's like, "Nah, not really." He's into baseball, and he was really got really into swimming. So it wasn't really anything that we really sat and really talked about. I was waiting for him to show the interest, and he never really did,
That's the exciting part one of the exciting things about having a kid is, my son's only 2. So I have this whole time ahead, and your son too. Only being 18, there's so many things that can change of what is going to interest them. Yeah. What is something that they're really going to get excited about, and that I can nurture and help them kind of like your parents did. That was a big, thing. In that article, you had said that you wanted to dance in Giselle and La Sylphide, and you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was that of going from like being a young teenager and being like, these are roles that I want to accomplish among so many others, and then looking back and being like, check.
Yeah, and it's funny because you think I want to do these roles. And I was so thankful to do Sylphide and Giselle, and so many roles that I actually thought I would never do. Because I was in a company that has and had a very diverse repertoire. And so it afforded me a lot of opportunities. But what I found as I got older, yes, it's so wonderful to do these roles. And there's a lot of characters I really fell in love with that I enjoyed for certain reasons. But really, so much of our time is in the studio and prepping for those performances that sometimes a favorite ballet for me wasn't a ballet I necessarily performed, but the experience was so fulfilling, or so I learned a lot, or I really enjoyed the person that staged the ballet, or, there's so many things that go into the baking of the cake that like when it's done, it's like, no, the whole experience was actually what made the role so much more fun. There's ballets that I hated performing, but loved the experience, or hated the experience and loved the performing. So, I think as you get older, you sort of figure out like it's a journey. I know that's such a cliche, but it really is sort of the process is a big part of, it's not like you just go out and you perform the role and that's the end of it. I think, and that role changes, the Giselle I did at, 25 is not the Giselle I did at 35. And that's what's so unique within performing, and actors do this too, is that your ideas and who you are as a person changes as those ballets come around again.
Oh yeah, so much more life experience and how you feel about those relationships within the storyline and the plot. Absolutely. Do you find that there's a particular genre within ballet that you like either working on or performing more, whether it be contemporary or classic?
I mean, I love contemporary. I loved everything. I think for me, like classical ballet or story ballets, I preferred playing people. And those ballets like, okay, Juliet, it's a fictional story, but those like someone like Juliet or someone like Madame Butterfly or
Oh, yeah.
Tatiana in Eugene Onegin, or those types of characters, or Marie and Marie Antoinette, who was a real person. I mean, those kind of characters were real people, or they were people that could have really existed. Those situations really exist, and I think those human characters really intrigued me, and I loved playing them more than someone who's half bird, half a person.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't enjoy Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty, but there was something about the
the humanness.
and the rawness of it that I think I enjoyed. I could relate to those characters a little bit more, and also those ballets tend to have a little less pantomime. They're a little less old fashioned, so there's something about the dynamic of the character that is a little harder to get across because you're not relying on pantomime and things. And so I just kind of enjoyed those characters a lot more. And I mean, I love contemporary work. I did too, because I was fortunate enough to be under Ben Stevenson, who was a choreographer, and Stanton, who's a choreographer. And so I had so many roles created on me, contemporary and, story ballets, that, people will say, what's your favorite role? It's like, I don't have one. I don't, they were at different points in my life, and they repeated many times, sometimes not a lot, but yeah, I was just lucky. I was at the right place at the right time.
Oh my gosh. I posted a photo on my Instagram account from winter, from the Four Seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I just cannot properly express the amount of love that I have for that ballet.
I know, and we have it repeated. I'm hoping, knock on wood, it comes around again soon, because Stanton did such a wonderful job with kind of, not literally, but sort of showing the 4 stages of a woman's life.
Yeah. When you walked out on stage, and everybody listening, I have searched for a full video of this on YouTube, and I can't. So I'm going to have to go in the archives maybe when I get back and see, just for my own satisfaction, to see it, because I remember it so vividly. And in winter, Barbara played the woman who's lost her husband or her love. And it's during that song, and she's like marching out slowly, and the snow is falling, and
so much snow. Yeah, no, it's a great visual scene.
Your heart is like broken watching it. And just, yes, Stanton, if you're watching this, please, can we bring it back? It's so gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Now that you're in more on the artistic side of things, how is that experience for you? And are you kind of enjoying getting in there and creating things and molding people in a way that maybe you didn't when you were performing?
I mean, I think it's, you think being a dancer is really hard. I think being on the artistic staff is it's the hardest job, and it's kind of, in a way, a very thankless job. You don't get the applause of the audience. You're not the person, on the marquee. You're sort of, a worker bee in the background, really getting things done and getting things organized and getting things. You're basically, a collective of the director trying to get the focus and get everything the way they want it. It sounds corny, but a lot of them, it's like, I not that I'm a parent to them or a mother to them, but I look at them and I think, oh, I made that dumb mistake. Oh yeah, I got upset. Like, you kind of, when you're on the other side of it, have a much clearer perspective of yeah, I kind of got upset and really got anxious about this or that or anything that they do. And I'm not there in some ways to be their therapist, but I am there to say, listen, don't let that bother you. That's a waste of time. I know from experience, and just guiding them and letting them see where they go with it. But it's a tremendous amount of work. It is a tremendous amount of work to learn a ballet, off a videotape. You think, okay, I did this role in a ballet. When you have to learn all 60 of the roles, it's hours and hours and hours in front of a television, in front of your iPad, trying to learn and write things out. So And to stage it, it's a huge responsibility.
No.
But I mean, it's nice as a dancer. You never felt like you never believed your improvement or necessarily took, you always felt like you could do better, and everyone should in a way feel that. But I think sometimes as a staff, I should say sometimes as a staff member, when I sit out in the front, even if it's a minuscule improvement, I see it. And I wish I slowed my brain down a little bit when I was dancing and listened to the staff a little bit more and realized that they weren't just BSing me. They were really telling me, no, that got better. That got better. So I think it's just, it's age. It's, when you're young, you just have a different perspective. And when you, like Ben Stevens said it once, because when you really, really figure it out, you can't do it anymore. And that's true. When you really go like, oh, I get it. You're like, and I can't do it anymore. I'm too old to do it anymore.
Your body's like, no.
Yeah.
We're just gonna hang back and let them do it. I mean, the work that goes into it, just seeing some of the pictures of your binders and stuff that you share online, I'm like, oh my goodness.
And some of these I brought home because of stuff that might come up that I have to look at. And I really am like, I should develop an app or somehow that I can like photograph these, but yet still be able to correct them or change them when need be, because they're too heavy to carry around. They really are.
Rolly cart. And then you have your French bulldog that wants to help you all the time.
No, he's a sweetheart. This poor pandemic dog. I mean, now I've literally created a monster.
He's so cute.
He's super cute and super fun, high maintenance, like high energy, needs a lot of playtime. But my kind of anxiety, thank God my husband has always worked from home, and he'll be home when we go back to normal. But he's certainly going to miss me, But at the same time, I was so thankful to have him, because, I have an 18-year-old son who's just like, not super focused on mom anymore. So he was a little something that I could play with and keep myself entertained. And spoil,
Oh, things I have to look forward to, because right now, like, Aiden still thinks I'm funny and adorable and wants to be near me, and so I'm like, oh, that's gonna always be like this.
No. And Ethan's great. He's a great kid, but he's finding himself, and he's growing up.
He's a teenager. I want to talk to you a little bit about being a mom in entertainment, because it's an issue that comes up a lot, whether it's with dance or in Cirque. The schedule itself is the opposite of the rest of the world. And that fact in itself makes things difficult sometimes, especially when they start school. And in the ballet world, we were chatting a little bit before, and that was not something that people did as often. You took time off when you had him, and were you planning on coming back?
I wasn't, and it was just kind of, it happened in the transition between Ben and Stanton, and I kind of had decided, what, I kind of don't want to go through this upheaval, and I don't really, not that it was an upheaval, but I didn't want to go through a change. And I had accomplished much more and had done much more than I thought I was ever going to do. And so I was completely content with not coming back. And I had worked with Stanton twice before that when he had done works with Houston Ballet. And, he was bringing in a diverse rep. He was doing ballets that I was like, oh, wow, it'd kill to do that ballet, or do more Killian, or do more of this, or do, just it became very appealing to at least come back for a couple of years. And I was 31, so I still had a little bit of dancing left in me. So I kind of took the leap of faith. The nice thing for me was, I'm married to what we all like to call in the business a normal person, someone that's not in the arts. And so our schedules worked out in a way that there was pretty much always one of us around. I mean, I did end up having a nanny for a while, but there was always one of us around, and it was just sort of the way we were able to work it out. But, I feel like I grew up with a generation of dancers like McCarva or Gelsey, Kirkland, and that sort of 80s group that not very many of them had children. you know, they didn't, I mean, McCarvin had a child, but it was a little taboo to take, you know, time off to have a baby. And I sort of think my generation was really the generation that was like, no, I think I can have a child and I can come back and be a ballet dancer. And that, you know, and Stanton is very pro kids and wants his dancers to feel like they can take the time off to have children. And so now, I mean, you see it in dance magazine, you see people take time off all the time to have children and go back to the profession. I think there was sort of this misconception that if you had a child, you couldn't come back and be a ballet dancer. No, you need to stay home. And much like, you know, our moms were in the 50s, you know, which you couldn't have a profession and be a kid. But being in the theater, it is challenging. I mean, they're funky hours and long hours and 6 days a week if you're performing. But then the trade-off is that, you know, Ethan was exposed to art and music and a really diverse group of people from like all over the world. He went on tour with us to Germany. You know, he's been to France. He's been, you know, so, you know, we went to Germany and he got to go to the embassy and meet, you know, I mean, like, so he had these like experiences that he would have never had he not had a mom that was a ballet dancer. So, you know, you take the good and the bad with that.
You have a crazy schedule for a couple of years, but you get exposed to such magical things. It's very true. I mean, you know, the other thing I found was, particularly with the acrobats and stuff and the dancers, you guys are in such great shape before you go out that coming back, it was, you know, of course, work, but their bodies seem to kind of have the muscle memory to be like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. I'm supposed to have an 8-pack. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and when you came back to get back into dancing, did you dance through pregnancy?
I mean, I took class and stuff, but I had kind of sort of decided I wasn't going to return to dancing. So, you know, I wasn't crazy doing it every day. But, you know, once Ethan was born and I got the clear, I mean, you do what you know, and I had the opportunity to take free ballet classes. So if I want exercise, I'd go in and take free ballet class. And I was teaching a lot still also. So, you know, I still demonstrate. So there was a part of me that sort of left it, but didn't really leave it. Yeah, I mean, I think the first ballet I did back, Ethan was probably 4 or 5 months old. It was Ghost Dances, actually.
Oh, wow.
Because I was back taking class at the company in like March with the idea that, you know, Stanton was taking over in September and I would be back in the company full time. And I was just taking class with the company and Ben was still director and Christopher Bruce was in town. He was like, I thought you stopped dancing. And I said, no, I'm going to come back next season. And, I'm just, you know, taking company class to get back in shape. And, you know, and he's like, do you want to do Ghost Dances? And I was like, well, yeah, I've done it before. Do you want me to do it? And he's like, I'd love for you to do it. So I was like, well, you have to ask Ben because technically I'm not employed at the moment. I'm just taking class. And, Ben was like, yeah, if you want to use her. So I kind of did Ghost Dances for a couple of weeks and, you know, performed it and then had a few more months of just taking class and then came back full time. But it was kind of weird to be off for a year and a half ish and get thrown into Ghost Dances, which is a contemporary ballet, but really hard in itself. So it was kind of like, oh, here we go. Let's just go. You know,
just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. I think I was sore like that first week of getting back into the swing of that type of work was painful. Yeah. was painful. Yeah.
Getting back up to the level that you need to be. You're like, right. Okay. That's where I was. That bar was pretty high. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now, outside of ballet, I understand that you are a certified scuba diver.
Yeah.
So tell me about this because I did not know I was scared of deep water with no bottom until I found myself in it off of a reef. And I was like, oh no, I don't know how I feel about this. And so scuba diving is very mysterious and interesting to me. because that's exactly what you do. I mean, you go into water that it's just you in this vast openness.
Yeah.
Right? Which is super cool, but also kind of scary. Like, how did you get into this?
Well, I mean, I grew up, my parents are Canadians. Okay. So my mom is a Newfoundlander and my dad's from Nova Scotia. And I spent all my summers there. And, we would drive up and we would visit family in Nova Scotia. Then you take the ferry, which is 12 hours, the ferry from from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland. And you're in water, you're by the Grand Banks. Now you're kind of far away from where the Titanic sunk, but you're in really deep, cold water. And in the summer, there's still icebergs in and around Newfoundland.
Wait, the ferry ride is 12 hours?
Yeah, the ferry ride is 12 hours to get across from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland. So, I've always been around. And then, I grew up in Florida. I've always been around the water. I've always felt safe in the water. We always had a swimming pool. I never had this fear or anxiety about the water. And my husband and I, we weren't married at the time. We just did a resort course. We were in Cancun and we just did a resort course and I fell in love with it. And I was like, this in no way other than, obviously getting the bends, and not being careful about watching my meter and my oxygen intake. It's not skiing. It's really kind of hard to hurt yourself, doing this. Yeah. So it was something, and being so close to living in Texas, being so close to Mexico, it just seemed, we both fell in love with it and I got certified and, at every time I had a break or in the summer, we would go diving. And then actually we didn't dive for a really long time when our son was little. And then when he was old enough, we got him certified. So, I love it. We just, our last dive trip, which seems forever ago, which would have been maybe a year and a half ago, we were in Belize. And actually, we saw was it a bull shark? I can't remember what shark we saw, but I love it. And now I and not that I'm riskier. I think I'm more like, okay, I've seen I've done Hawaii and I've dove a lot of places, the Caymans, I've done Belize, Bahamas. Now I want to see like I want to see a large whale or things like that. So that's kind of now on my bucket list, is to see large mammals. And the thing with that type of diving, my understanding is you go much further away from the shore and you may go out on a dive and not see anything. So, there's kind of not a risk in that, but you could be doing 2 days of diving and not see one thing because you're out really in very deep water. Whereas, I've done a 90, 100-foot dive, but I don't feel like, I don't get any of the anxiety. Some people feel like, that makes me feel so claustrophobic. I'm very comfortable in the water. It doesn't, but I love it. It's amazing.
Is there a sense of peace when you're down there? Like, is it loud or is it quiet?
No, you can hear yourself breathe. I think for me, you feel so minute in the great world, and I think, something that there's things that, are around us that we don't stop to really observe, and even, above water. And it's down there. It's being light. It's like you feel good because you're almost feel like you're a little bit weightless, and to see creatures in their natural habitat. I don't know. I find it really soothing.
Yeah. I think it's really fascinating. Maybe one day I'll be brave and I can do it. Telling you, we went over the edge of that reef and I was like, where's the floor? Where did it go?
I had that in Cozumel. My husband and I were doing the Great Wall, and I looked, and he is like this little speck, and it's like it's an abyss. It makes you think of that film, The Abyss, which yeah.
Everybody that saw that, it's like ingrained in your mind with the pink fluid, which is a real thing apparently.
Yeah, that they ingest so they can breathe. Yeah, and you do feel like I am so small in the great vast world of things, but I don't know. I feel like I have a pretty good sense of direction. I'm not somebody to not pay attention. So I feel like, if anything is going to happen, it's going to be somebody else, not necessarily me being stupid or not paying attention.
I love that. Is there any other kind of, now that, you can be a little bit more risky, is there any other kind of extreme sport?
I mean, I love to ski. I'm a novice. I'm not a very good skier. And I didn't ski the whole time I was dancing. I did in the beginning, when I was younger. And then I had a big foot surgery and I said, you know what, this, I need to be careful. And then I didn't ski. And it was the first thing I did when I retired that winter was like, let's go skiing. Because my husband likes to ski and we just never went because
there's a lot
I couldn't ski. So that was a reason to do it. And you know what? I mean, now I haven't skied in about 2 years, but a part of me is going, I feel like I'm so out of shape that I think I would die if I went skiing now. Like my legs would just be so sore. But I did go back to it just because I could. I didn't, if I broke my leg, that would suck, but I didn't have to worry about going back to work saying, I kind of broke my leg skiing. I didn't have to worry about that. Yeah.
I see that you have a very cute shirt on with all of the Star Wars characters.
Yes.
So we were chatting a little bit about, I loved the Ewoks growing up. They were my jam. Is it The Last Jedi? Did the Ewoks show up? Yeah. So my brother's watching that and he's freaking out about the actual Star Wars characters. And I'm like, no, the little bears, Wicket. Like I had a piggy bank, a Wicket piggy bank. I was all about the Ewoks. What was that like whenever you saw it?
I was 5 when I saw Star Wars, and I saw it at a drive-in, which, don't exist anymore.
I love that.
Yeah. And it really kind of, I mean, we had never seen anything like that. I mean, I'm going to turn 50 this year. And so I'm of that generation that Star Wars made a huge impression on us. We'd never seen anything like it, the technology behind it. And, there were 3 big films. They were quite a few years apart, but they really left an impression on that generation. And then I think and I've always been like a comic nerd. I've always loved superheroes. There's always something about sci-fi and superheroes that I've always really, really loved. I love movies in general, especially.
Yeah,
but so when the prequels came out, I think can't remember when the first prequel came out, but I started introducing them to my son on DVD, and he sort of just fell in love with it too. And so it was like passing the torch of the love of Star Wars over onto my son. And he was my only kid, and so we would sit on the floor, and I bought him action figures, and we would sit there and play when he was little and play Star Wars. And I don't know, there's something about the story when when Lucas made the film and where it happened and what an impression it made on that generation and how it opened the floodgates for so many other films after that to, push the limits of what, whether it be small models or now with CGI and things like that. I mean, he really took film making to a different level. And, but I mean, I watched The Mandalorian. I have my opinion on the last 3 films that were made, but at the same time, like I said, it still yet introduced another whole generation to the love of Star Wars. And I'm just a big nerd about it. I think they're great. I mean, I think they're fun films, and it really comes down to the story of good versus evil. It's your classic Western or your classic, good guy versus bad guy kind of storytelling, which everybody can relate to.
Oh yeah. And the music, you hear it and it's so epic, John Williams and the score and everything, you hear it. It's so recognizable. And then there's like a sense of everybody can kind of tell you, oh, I was sick when I was a kid and we stayed home all day and watched all of these movies and it made me feel better. And my brother had a Star Wars bedroom. I have a twin brother and I had a strawberry shortcake room and he had Star Wars, but everything was Star Wars, like the toy box, everything. And so when I hear all of those songs and the movies, I didn't realize how much I watched it in the periphery until when they re-released it and there was all the CGI additions. And I was like, that was not in there.
Yeah.
And he's like, how do you know? You never even watched it. And I was like, I absolutely was paying attention, especially if the Ewoks were involved. And just, but the new ones are fine, like, but nothing like the originals.
Well, I can remember my dad broke his foot, and he took me to a movie theater in Pompano Beach, Florida, that had like the balcony and the curtain that opened like when the movie started. Yeah, it's just like, it was this old timey theater. And he fell asleep. He's got his foot up on the back of and he's like asleep. And when Darth Vader says, "I'm your father," I was like, I remember that, like, it is so ingrained in my brain. And you think that is amazing that, that's how much those films had an impact on me, that I can remember my dad sleeping through it, not understanding what's going on, and me being like, what? Like, oh my God, blown away by it. And you think back then, none of us had internet and the ability to get, it's just so different. I mean, yeah, I kind of miss that. I miss not knowing what was going to happen,
Right? And the shared experience, which it kind of correlates to live theater in a sense that before we all watched the same movies. So I'm 10 years younger than you. So growing up, I kind of grew up with analog and digital at some point when I was like 16, but we all watched the same movies, watched the same television shows. We all know about the same commercials on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the shared experience, right? That is what makes it kind of nostalgic, I think.
Yeah.
And I feel like theater, like me trying desperately to find that scene from the Four Seasons, it only exists in my memory.
Yeah.
And I have that shared experience from a different point of view with the audience or the people that were backstage as well, that now we can't have because everything is, I can rewind it, I can watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Down, which everything being shut down, it will be back because it has to be.
Yeah.
Because I think all of us have discovered that we need that live spark of magic. The curtains open, the scrim comes down, the music.
I mean, and that's what's so interesting. And there's nothing like seeing, like you said, the collective experience of seeing something and that's the beauty to me of live theater. I mean, right now, the dancers in our company at Houston Ballet, they're film dancers for a year. They're doing, and there's some really great things about filming. You can get it right because you can take after take after take. There's so many great things about film and things you can't do in live theater because it's live theater. But there's something about every show. Yes, you try and recreate the same show every time, but it isn't. And it is that one moment in time that you've shared with 2,000 other people sitting around you that no amount of TV or anything can replace.
No.
And I think that's what people, whether it's seeing ballet or whether it's seeing cirque or whether it's seeing, opera or going to the symphony or seeing a play or a Broadway show, whatever it is, it's us all sitting together and having and making memories and sharing an experience.
Yeah. And I hope that I think that the backstage experience you were talking about, I think that's wonderful because so many people don't understand, like you were saying, what goes into it. And there is the magic of what's on stage and all of the beautiful lights and everything. But there is something so wonderful and sacred and special about being in the wings and having that light bounce off. Like if you ever look around backstage and watch people watching the show and they have that light that just bounces off of their face and then it's black behind them and there's all these things happening. There's such a magic about that I love, obviously.
Well, and I think that's what's so unfortunate about not having Nutcracker for basically in America, no one had Nutcracker this year. And, in our new production, Stanton's production, there's so many kids backstage.
Yeah.
And, and I'm grandmother a couple shows, in the run. And I sit backstage during the snow scene and the battle scene just to watch it so I can watch it as a staff member. And sometimes I'll look at the monitor just to make sure everybody's in line or if I have any notes. But when you kind of really remove yourself and you look at these little kids that are just like wide-eyed and just mesmerized at not just the technical aspects of what's going on backstage, but like watching a principal do sugar or watching this dancer do this, and it's so impressionable. I mean, they really will remember that experience for the rest of their lives, and for them to not have that, for me, is just, it's devastating, because it's also part of Christmas. It's like going to the theater, and I'm the first one that will complain and hate Nutcracker for, the 30 some odd years I've had to, spend 40 shows in a month staring at it or being in it. That there is, it's an experience for a young group of dancers. And for many people, it's their first time ever seeing a ballet. I'll share a really funny story. I don't even remember, Sean Kelly, who was a former principal, who's now was done a lot of Broadway musicals and stuff like that. We remember we were doing Sugar Plum one year together. This was years ago. And our company manager came up to us and said, listen, there's a couple here tonight. And he's going to propose to his wife after the show. So he's going to bring her backstage. Can you guys stay and like do a photo op? And she's going to sit on the throne. And it's like, you guys are going to take pictures, and he's going to come around with the ring and propose to her. So I was like, yeah. So, okay. So we stay after the show, and they set up, the throne, and he's chatting, and he's like, oh, by the way, we went on our first date to the Nutcracker. And so it was like, that really struck me as like,
it's a moment.
Yeah, it's a moment. And, he turned, we took pictures and we chatted together. And I said, oh, would you like to sit on stage? She goes, oh, can I? I said, sure. And we, kneel next to her and take photos. And he comes around. And it was weird because it was like, oh my God, this is a totally intimate moment that I don't even know these people. But like the ballet, that was, it did something. That was their first date. And now they're getting married. And we were a part of that. And it was just, I don't know, that stuck with me for a long time. It still does to this day, that, memories are created at shows, and family events and traditions happen at different types of shows. And, those are important,
Can we also talk about the bar that was set with that being the first date for him? I feel like dating has kind of gone downhill from there. He should help some people. That's amazing.
I know. It's like, or we should say like, hey, you know what? You want to propose to your wife at the ballet? It's an extra $100 to come backstage and propose, or like, great date night, or great proposal night, or great Valentine's, gift, or something like that.
God. I'm a hopeless romantic. I love that story.
No, it was really cute. And she like cried. It was really sweet. I mean, it was really sweet. And I was like, he's a keeper. He's a keeper. Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you a hopeless romantic, or?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am in a way. Yes. I think, when you grow up in theater, and you play those characters. Yeah, you are, I mean, I think there's reality too, but I think there's a part of me. That's why I love film, and I love all types of theater and TV shows and stuff, is to sort of get lost in that storytelling, Oh,
I know. I'm attracted to, I was very sad that I was not here for Onegin, because that poem by Pushkin is unbelievable. If people will take time to sit down and read it. And then they did a film version with Ray Fiennes that every single frame looks like a painting. And it's so tragic. And I really, really like tragic, unrequited love type stories. That particular one was so upsetting, though, to me. And I wanted to see it. I was, I think, in Vegas at the time, and I couldn't get back to see it. But I still, thank God for social media, was friends with quite a few of you from the ballet, so I could kind of follow the pictures and stuff. Do you find that you Barbara, and as a performer, are more attracted to the darker kind of love stories like that, or do you like more of the light and airy rom-coms?
I think that the darker ones, because life is not always a storybook ending, and I think, not that I identify with dark characters or things like that, but like life is that. It's like ups and downs and sideways and all over the place, and people are complicated, and there isn't a fairy godmother to go boop and like make everything great again, and I think they're complex characters, and I think that's why they're interesting to portray, that they have lots of different levels and lots of different shade, where not that Aurora doesn't, but it's a fairy tale.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. And so I think that's why those characters are fun to play. And I think audience members enjoy them because everybody is flawed in some way, shape, or form. And you can identify those flaws, and no, I mean, yeah, they're more interesting to play. I think they're more interesting to watch. Maybe not everyone would agree with me, but yeah, I do.
What are you looking forward? I was thinking about this sentence, like, what do you look forward to? And literally now I feel like, because we're all in a stationary position in life at the moment, like, what are you literally looking forward to? Like, looking ahead at this year in hope, or what's kind of on your radar as you're excited about coming up in life?
I would be excited to just like go have dinner and go see a movie. That sounds so like, I mean, I think some form of normal day-to-day activity is something that, I look forward to. I mean, on the short end, I'm looking forward to seeing where my son gets into college and seeing how that's all going to unfold in the next couple of months. But, ultimately just to sort of, I think just to be able to like look at my husband and say, you know what, let's go eat dinner. Let's go, and not have to be like, oh, should we do takeout? Like I think we've eaten outside once at a restaurant. Like I'm not super comfortable with it. So it'd be nice just to go, where do we want to go? And just go. I mean,
Right.
I think I look forward to that day happening, and I actually would look forward. I haven't seen my folks in a year and a half. And I would like to be able to feel safe enough to get on an airplane and do that. Those are the two things. But I'm very happy to travel just a few states over, let alone go back to Europe or anywhere else. But I look forward to, just even if we got back to like 50% of where we were at, I think that's something to look forward to. And I hope it's going to be close to that, maybe by the fall. Maybe I'm optimistic, maybe I'm being pessimistic. I'm not really sure, because I think we're navigating really uncharted waters, and especially just as human beings in our daily life. But I think the arts organizations have really like been thrown for a loop here. I think we're the last industry to go back. I really believe that.
Yeah, I think that that's true just by the nature of it. I mean, and I was talking to someone the other day and I said, even if we figure out the audience scenario, right? It's the backstage scenario and the onstage scenario. That is where the issue is, because you don't see all of these people, but it takes a whole entire village to make this stuff come to life. And they're not 6 feet apart,
No, I mean, that was like, I was on a Zoom call and they're like, well, the audience could get tested and we could have 60% capacity. And you're like, but you understand that there are, 80 people in the orchestra pit. There are, say, 60 dancers in the company. Most everybody's on in some capacity. You've got that many academy kids in roles in the ballet. You've got crew. You've got lighting. There's wardrobe, makeup, wigs. I mean, there's probably, as maybe not 2,000 backstage, but you've got a huge amount of people that have to be in very close proximity of each other. It's not possible, right now. It's just not possible. And it's different if you're just the symphony and you wear your tuxedo and you put it on at home and you come in and you can be distanced. They're not moving sets, and it's a different ball game. It's a different ball game. And
right, like we're touching your sweat, like literally.
Well, and you think a lot of costumes can't be laundered. They're sprayed down and they're hung out to dry. but most costumes, that's why we wear certain undergarments that can be washed under those, can't be washed. They're sprayed down with vodka or, a solution and dried. And so there's so many things that go into it. And, and the off tick of that is, if you go downtown Houston, because the alley and the opera and the ballet and, Tuts and nobody's working, all these restaurants are shuttering.
Yeah.
And, and that's kind of, everybody touches everybody in some way, shape, or form,
hopefully we can get through this and get back to, like you said, at least 50% normalcy by the fall would be absolutely amazing. I would
love to teach a ballet class, not in a mask and not having to keep them in a square, like an 8 foot square. That would be amazing. But, it is what it is. And I think, I said this to my son, and I said it to some of the younger dancers in the company. I said, this will define you. This will define your generation. So I think really value and take stock in what you had and how you learn from this experience, and you move forward from here. Yeah.
Are there any mottos that you find that you live by on the daily or throughout your career that is like a reoccurring thing say to yourself?
I don't know. God, there's probably some things I can't say on a live web feed. No, I think, my dad said this to me. You only get out of something what you put in it. That was something that really stuck with me, regardless of the outcome. And I've said this to people, if you wholeheartedly have given 100%, you can go home that night and say, I did my best. Maybe your best wasn't perfect, or your best wasn't whatever you think it is, or someone else thinks it is. But that was something that always stuck with me. You only get out of something what you put into it. So, yeah.
It's an absolute. Absolutely. I want to thank you for agreeing to do this. Like I said,
it was fun.
Oh, good.
No, we were supposed to do it earlier on, and ironically, normally I know like I said, like we talked at the beginning of this, I know my schedule, I know everything that's happening, and COVID's just made it like, it's like, I love the word they say, it's fluid.
Yeah.
We had to like postpone because it's like, I actually have to teach that morning because, people were out with other things. And so I just happened to be the person that had to cover for that. So it's going with the flow. Maybe that's what the motto should be. Going with the flow, and it's fluid.
This year is all about, I thought I was adaptable before. I really was not. That is what I learned, is this year is definitely about being flexible and not getting too worked up about things.
Yep.
And just, okay, that's fine. And that was absolutely fine. I'm just so thankful that you said yes, because like I said, I'm such an admirer of your dancing.
Oh, thanks.
And being so sweet and kind and welcoming when I came back. And
no, I was so excited. I was like, what's so unique about not ballet, arts in general. When I talk to people that went to college, I didn't go to college, they always talk about being in their sorority or their fraternity. And I feel like when you're in the performing arts, especially live theater, and you're around the same group of people for maybe quite a few years, you create these like sororities and fraternities. And it is like being in college all the way through your 30s. Like it's like you have all these wonderful shared experiences, and you're so intimate with people. And I think that's a thing I miss about being a dancer, is that camaraderie and that feeling of like unity,
Yeah. These are people you spend more time with than your actual family usually.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
To be honest. That's why when people are in jobs that they hate, I'm like, this is a lot of time that you spend in this job. Maybe we should rethink some things. Like, we were fortunate enough to be able to do that, I think, to do what we loved and love still. Yeah. Both of us are still working, so it's great, But I look forward to seeing what's coming up this spring, and hopefully being back there with you guys and gals. And
yeah.
thank you for everything that you do. And
well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
welcome.
are you getting any snow in your area?
Nope, just a lot of rain and coldness today.
I was hoping we might get a little flurry, but I think we're too close to town. I mean, I'm in town, so but people are posting up in Brenham and stuff like that. They're getting a little snow. Crazy.
Yeah, I wish.
Crazy.
Nope, just wet here, which is fine. Like, I'll take the cold any day. I love it. The wet, not so much, but well, Happy New Year, Barbara. And
Happy New Year, you.
Thank you so much. And everybody, if you want to check out more of Barbara Baer's work, you can check it out on HoustonBallet.org, right?
Mm-hmm.
.com. And also she has Instagram, and then you can follow here on Behind the Biz. And Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. Stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Behind the Biz, Conversations with Artists in Entertainment. You can also check out this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. See you next time.